We have this collective cultural obsession with the whole eureka moment.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
The lone genius in the lab.
right. Like a student sitting in a dorm room and bam, struck by lightning.
The triumphant music swells in the background.
Exactly. And we assume that brilliant idea inevitably changes the world.
We treat the idea itself like it's the finish line.
Yeah, as if having a smart thought is literally all it takes to build an empire.
It is a very comforting narrative, I'll give it that. I mean, we love the romance of pure, unadulterated inspiration.
We really do.
But the reality of bringing an idea to market is far more clinical. It's far more mechanical, and honestly, it is way more difficult than a montage in a movie makes it look.
And that is exactly what our mission is today. We're doing a deep dive into the actual anatomy of innovation.
Because it really is an anatomy. There are moving parts.
Exactly. We want to look at exactly what it takes to turn a raw academic idea into a market-ready product that people can actually use.
Right, in the real world.
Yeah. Right. And to do that, we're looking at a highly concentrated single source today. It's a brief document outlining this really comprehensive business development program.
Created by a company called TMA.
Yes, TMA. And this program is specifically designed for Vietnamese students and educators.
And, what makes this document so compelling isn't just who it's for, but what it represents.
What do you mean?
Well, if we are being brutally honest about the academic world like high schools, universities, research labs, they are too often graveyards for brilliant ideas.
Oh, wow. Graveyards. That's a bit grim.
It is, but think about it. A student writes this groundbreaking paper, or a teacher develops a novel conceptual model, and then
Let me guess, nothing happens.
it just dies in the classroom. The semester ends, the grade is given, the paper goes into a drawer, and the idea just evaporates.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
So what this source provides is a literal blueprint to prevent that evaporation. It outlines a way to capture that academic energy and literally force it into the commercial pipeline.
Okay, let's unpack this because TMA's program lays out a very specific sequence to take an idea from that initial spark to a final product.
A literal step-by-step.
Right. And the very first thing they demand from these innovators is something called prior art and patent searches.
Step one.
Step one. Before we even talk about making money or building a prototype or getting funding, this legal research is the starting line.
It is the absolute foundation.
Think of it like this, right? Imagine you're walking through the woods and you find this incredibly strange, unidentifiable seed.
Okay, I'm with you.
You pick it up and you think, wow, I have discovered a brand new plant. But the truth is, you don't know if it's a noxious weed that's going to ruin your entire garden or, if it's a prize-winning tomato.
Right, and you wouldn't just blindly plant it in your best soil.
You definitely wouldn't. You wouldn't start pouring expensive imported fertilizer on it.
That would be a huge waste of money.
Exactly. You would investigate its origins first. You'd look it up. You'd see if anyone else in the world has ever grown this thing. In the innovation world, that unknown seed is your raw idea, the premium soil and the water. That's your funding, your time, and your energy.
That's a great way to look at it.
But I have to admit, putting legal research at the very front of this process seems like a massive buzzkill.
It really does sound like a buzzkill.
Right. Why force an excited student to wade through dry patent databases before they even figure out if their idea has any real business potential?
Well, what's fascinating here is skipping the patent search is arguably the single most common and honestly most fatal pitfall for new innovators.
Really? The most common.
By far. You have to understand the psychology of the academic mindset. It is often focused purely on the joy of discovery.
Just the thrill of figuring it out.
Exactly. The internal logic is basically, I just thought of this in my dorm room, therefore it is new to the world.
Oh, I see. Because it's new to them.
Yes. But the commercial world doesn't care about your personal timeline. It operates entirely on existing intellectual property.
Right. The law doesn't care about your dorm room revelation.
Exactly. There is absolutely no point in securing funding or spending 2 years building a prototype if you are accidentally copying existing work.
Because someone else already owns the tomato, you're just trespassing on their farm.
Precisely. And prior art just means any evidence that your invention is already known.
Like what? Just other patents?
It could be a previous patent from, 1998, sure. But it could also be a published paper in an obscure journal, or even a product already sitting on a shelf somewhere else in the world.
Wow, so it's a really broad net.
Very broad. By putting this at the very beginning of the pipeline, TMA is forcing these Vietnamese students and educators to immediately confront commercial reality.
It takes the emotion out of it.
It aggressively takes the emotion out of the eureka moment.
Right.
It looks at the innovator and says, great idea. Now prove no one else on the planet has had it.
Which saves so much catastrophic heartbreak down the line. I mean, I can't even imagine getting to year 3 of a startup, mortgaging your house, hiring a team,
Oh, it's a nightmare.
and then receiving a cease and desist letter because some tech giant patented your core mechanism a decade ago and just, never built it.
It happens all the time, and it bankrupts people. But I want to highlight something really crucial from the source text that you touched on earlier.
Yeah.
TMA isn't just offering this program to students. They explicitly include educators in this development pipeline.
I noticed that, and it feels a bit unorthodox.
It is a little unusual.
Usually, incubators or startup programs are entirely student-focused. It's always that young, hungry entrepreneur narrative.
The whole Silicon Valley dropout trope.
Right. So why bring the teachers into a business development pipeline? They already have jobs.
Think about the massive multiplier effect.
Multiplier effect.
Yeah. If you teach a single student how to conduct a prior art search and how to identify business potential, which is the next phase in TMA's blueprint, by the way, you empower one student.
Makes sense.
But if you teach an educator how to do this, you are fundamentally changing the entire academic ecosystem from the inside out.
How so? Because they, take that commercial awareness back to the lecture hall.
Exactly. That teacher starts looking at their students' work through an entirely different lens.
Oh, that's interesting.
Suddenly, they aren't just grading papers for academic rigor or proper citations. They are evaluating semester projects for real-world viability.
Wow.
They might pull a student aside and say, you know this algorithm you wrote for your midterm. That's not just an A-, that's a patentable logistics solution. Let's look at the market.
Oh, that completely changes the dynamic. They start mentoring differently.
They do. They become a permanent bridge between the academic theory they teach and the reality of the tech industry.
That is an incredibly powerful shift. You aren't just building a startup, you are shifting the culture of the institution itself.
Exactly.
So let's follow the pipeline. They've done the prior art search. It's a totally original idea.
Check.
Next, they identify the business potential, meaning they prove that someone actually wants to buy this thing and that it solves a real problem.
Step 2.
And once they have that proof, they hit the wall that stops almost everyone: paying for it.
The dreaded funding stage.
Securing the funding to actually initiate the project. Getting the soil and the water for our original seed.
And this is where popular culture does us another massive disservice. Because a lot of people think securing the funding is where the journey ends.
Oh, I am totally guilty of thinking that.
Most people are.
You see the photos on social media of the startup team holding the giant novelty check, they're popping champagne, smiling in front of a whiteboard.
Wearing the matching t-shirt.
Yes, and I
Yeah.
just think, wow, they made it.
But securing the funding is really just arriving at the starting line of a very long, very exhausting marathon.
Which brings us to the actual execution phase of TMA's blueprint.
The reality check of the business world.
Right. And here's where it gets really interesting, because the next phase of this framework is written in a way that is beautifully, deceptively simple.
Oh, it really is.
It just says, managing projects from start to finish, 4 little words.
So casual.
But we have to push back on how clean and tidy that sounds on paper. Managing a project from start to finish is not a bullet point on a Tuesday morning to-do list.
Not even close.
It is a massive, grueling, multi-year undertaking. To go back to our analogies, it's the difference between sitting in a cozy coffee shop, sketching a beautiful mid-century modern house on a napkin, and actually acting as the general contractor for that house out in the mud.
That's spot on. The napkin sketch is the idea, and the funding is the bank loan. But you can't live in a bank loan.
Right. You have to build the house, and managing the project is dealing with the plumbing.
It's the unglamorous stuff.
It's fighting with the city for zoning permits. It's the drywall guys simply not showing up for 3 weeks.
Or they put up the wrong drywall.
Exactly. It's the roof leaking right over the expensive hardwood floors you just installed.
Yep.
In tech innovation, managing from start to finish means navigating global supply chain shortages, hunting down software bugs that crash your system at 2 a.m., managing team egos, dealing with budget overruns.
Endless beta testing.
Yes, endless testing. It is an absolute grind.
It is the crucible where most businesses actually fail. I mean, having the idea isn't the business. Execution is the business.
Oh, yeah, that's the truth.
The world is full of brilliant people who cannot manage a timeline. And this is where the structure of TMA's program becomes a literal lifeline.
Because it forces a process.
Exactly. It provides a structured methodology to survive that grind.
Yeah.
Because if, and it's a big if, the innovator can navigate the chaos of managing the project, they finally have a tangible product.
They built the house.
They built it.
Yeah.
But they aren't done yet. They have to move immediately into protecting their intellectual property and then finally marketing the solution.
Okay, I have to stop you there because the sequencing of those last two steps feels completely backward to me.
Backward. How so? Well, put yourself in the shoes of this innovator, right?
Yeah.
You just survived the nightmare of project management. You built the thing.
Right, you're exhausted but thrilled. Your budget is probably running thin, and you need to start making your money back. The natural human instinct is to run out into the street, launch a website, and scream, "Look at what I made, look at how it works, please buy this."
Of course.
I would assume marketing comes right after the build phase to capture that momentum. Why force a legal roadblock protecting intellectual property right in the middle of that excitement?
It is a very natural instinct to want to share it. But this raises an important question. What actually happens the moment you market an unprotected solution?
People buy it.
Well, hopefully. But the urge to share is overwhelming, right?
Right.
But the moment you put it on a website or present it at a trade show or try to pitch it to a corporate client, it is out in the open.
Oh, I see.
The blueprint, the mechanics, the secret sauce, it's fully visible to the world. And the commercial world is very, very good at reverse engineering good ideas.
So if you skip the IP protection and just go straight to marketing?
You are essentially just doing free research and development for your competitors.
Ouch.
Yeah. Imagine you've done all the heavy lifting. You did the prior art search, you fought for the funding, you survived the grueling project management phase to build a perfect prototype.
All that work.
And if you market it without protecting the IP, without filing the actual patents, registering the trademarks, or, legally securing your trade secrets, a larger company can just look at your website, understand how your product works, and build it themselves.
And they can probably build it cheaper.
Exactly. Because they have more money, more engineers, and existing distribution channels, they will scale it globally before you even finish celebrating your launch.
That is brutal.
Protecting the IP is basically locking the doors and turning on the security system of that beautiful house you just built before you invite the entire neighborhood over for an open house.
That is a terrifying but deeply necessary reality check. You have to lock the doors. If you don't own a business. You just run a charity for bigger corporations. So looking at this whole pipeline, we've gone from the seed of an academic idea through the historical research, securing the soil and water, surviving the exhausting build phase, locking the legal doors, all the way to putting it on the market.
It's a massive journey.
It really is a monumental journey for a Vietnamese student or an educator to take with their own original idea. But it begs a pretty obvious question.
Which is?
What if they don't have the eureka idea yet? What if they want to be an entrepreneur, but the light bulb just hasn't gone off?
That is where the alternative path in TMA's framework comes into play. It recognizes that not everyone starts at the finish line of inspiration.
Right. The source material outlines a second avenue. It states that participants who might not be ready to launch their own original product can instead contribute to ongoing projects at TMA.
A completely different approach.
Yeah, they get to step into a sandbox that already exists, gaining what the document calls valuable hands-on experience and practical exposure in real-world innovation. And it specifically highlights that these ongoing projects span incredibly advanced transformative fields, namely artificial intelligence, AI, and integrated circuits, which is usually abbreviated as IC.
Now, we need to pause here, because these are not exactly entry-level topics you can just dabble in over the weekend.
No, they aren't, which actually leads me to a pretty skeptical question.
Let's hear it.
If a student is just plugging into an existing corporate project at TMA, isn't that just a glorified, standard corporate internship?
I can see why you'd think that.
You know the stereotype, right? Filing digital paperwork, running basic code tests, maybe fetching coffee for the senior engineers.
Right, the traditional intern experience.
Exactly. How does contributing to someone else's ongoing work fit into a business development program that is supposed to be minting independent innovators?
It's a completely fair assumption to make, but if we connect this to the bigger picture, we have to look closely at the specific physical and computational realities of the technologies TMA is targeting here.
AI and IC.
Artificial intelligence and integrated circuits. These are arguably the most complex, resource-heavy, and fundamentally transformative technologies on the planet right now.
I mean, we throw those buzzwords around a lot, but they really are the foundation of basically everything we use.
Exactly. Let's take integrated circuits first. For anyone who might not be deep into hardware jargon, an integrated circuit is the actual physical microchip.
The brain of the computer.
It is the silicon brain that runs everything from your smart microwave to an electric vehicle to the servers powering the entire internet.
Right.
And because they are so foundational, the barrier to entry to innovate in this space is astronomically high. You cannot just tinker with semiconductor manufacturing in your garage on a Sunday afternoon.
It's not like coding an app.
Not at all.
Yeah.
It requires massive, specialized clean rooms where a single speck of dust can ruin a $1 million wafer.
Wait, really? A speck of dust?
Literally a speck of dust. It
Yeah.
requires microscopic precision lasers and tens of millions of dollars in fabrication equipment.
So a student literally couldn't pursue an IC idea on their own, even if they wanted to. They wouldn't have the tools.
Exactly. And the same logic applies to artificial intelligence. Pushing the boundaries of AI isn't just about writing clever math equations on a chalkboard.
Right, it's about computing power.
It requires massive, incredibly expensive computing power and colossal, messy, real-world data sets to train the models.
Which an average student definitely doesn't have lying around.
You cannot just read a theoretical textbook about these fields and expect to suddenly generate a market-ready innovation.
Mm.
The theory doesn't match the friction of reality.
Ah, I see the mechanism here. You can't write a great novel if you don't know the alphabet. You need the vocabulary first.
Precisely. You need the high-level technical vocabulary, but more importantly, you need the practical, tactile exposure to how these complex systems fail.
How they fail, not how they succeed.
Exactly. When you are embedded in a real-world AI project, you aren't just fetching coffee. You are watching a language model hallucinate because the client's actual data is unstructured and chaotic.
Oh, you're seeing the real problems.
You are seeing how a commercial team pivots when a piece of hardware doesn't scale the way the academic paper promised it would. You learn how to solve actual market problems rather than theoretical academic puzzles.
Okay, that makes sense.
Working on TMA's ongoing projects is essentially an immersion program.
It's an apprenticeship in the absolute cutting edge of technology.
Exactly. By giving Vietnamese students and educators this hands-on access to the messy reality of AI and IC development, TMA is providing them with the raw materials they need to eventually generate their own viable ideas.
Right.
You have to understand where the edge of the map is before you can explore beyond it.
I love that.
Once a participant spends 6 months working on a real AI deployment for a client, or understanding the brutal physical limitations of an integrated circuit design inside a clean room, then they are equipped to go back to the beginning of the blueprint.
Because now, when they look for that strange seed in the woods, they know exactly what they're looking for.
They know the difference between a weed and a tomato.
Right. They aren't just guessing at what the tech market might need. They've seen the gaps in the market firsthand. They know what the technology can and cannot physically do.
It grounds the whole process.
It makes the whole pipeline we talked about earlier, the prior art search, the funding, the project management, so much more potent because the initial idea is grounded in reality, not fantasy.
It creates a feedback loop of highly informed, highly capable innovators who understand both the technology and the business mechanics required to deploy it.
So what does this all mean?
That's the big question.
For you listening right now, whether you are a student sitting in a dorm room, an educator trying to inspire the next generation, an aspiring entrepreneur, or just someone inherently curious about how the future actually gets built,
Yeah, what's the takeaway?
it means that innovation isn't magic, it is mechanics. We so often feel overwhelmed by the sheer pace of technology, especially when we are bombarded with buzzwords like AI or IC.
It can feel very intimidating.
It can feel like this impenetrable fortress of genius that you aren't allowed into. But what this deep dive into TMA's framework reveals is that bringing an idea to life is a deliberate, structured, and entirely learnable process.
It is a complete demystification of the tech industry. It takes the magic out of it and replaces it with a roadmap.
Completely. It is conducting the boring legal prior art searches so you don't accidentally repeat history.
It's securing the funding.
Right. It's surviving the exhausting, muddy marathon of project management and city permits and software bugs.
It's legally locking the doors to protect your work.
And then, and only then, marketing your genius to the world. And if you don't have the million-dollar idea yet, the path forward isn't to sit in a room waiting for lightning to strike.
Never wait for the lightning.
The path is to immerse yourself in the practical reality of the technology until the ideas naturally form from the friction. It is a start-to-finish pipeline that proves true innovation is as much about sheer discipline as it is about creativity. And as the source material notes, anyone looking to understand this process further or looking to get involved can directly contact TMA for more information.
And, looking at this entire ecosystem, I think it leaves us with a really fascinating implication to consider about the future.
Oh, like what?
We talked earlier about educators taking this mechanical, business-minded knowledge back to their schools.
Right, the multiplier effect.
Yeah. If comprehensive incubators programs that literally teach patent law, funding acquisition, and hands-on AI and IC development become directly integrated into the everyday student and educator experience,
Okay.
how long until the traditional boundaries between a classroom and a tech startup dissolve entirely? What happens to our education system when the final exam for a semester isn't a multiple choice test, but a fully patented, market-ready product?
Wow, now that is a thought that changes the entire landscape of how we learn. The next time you see a brilliant idea out in the wild, don't just ask where the inspiration came from. Ask if they've checked the soil, secured the permits, and locked the doors. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.